it's Kit. Time for another video. Today, we're gonna be rigging the Maxel Dragonfly. Kind of an exception, actually. I'll show you later. It's very tricky, but a few things to look for when you're rigging these things. A few reminders, actually, just good housekeeping, and then we'll talk about hooks. All right, I have an example of hooks here, and we're gonna be talking about hooks with eyes and hooks without eyes. Okay, so have a bit of an example, actually two good examples in that category. We're going to be talking about slow jigging hooks versus fast jigging hooks. All right, just so you don't mix things up. Okay, and we'll do this while we're actually rigging this jig right here. So, if you're new to the channel, this channel talks about the hows and whys of fishing. We cover everything from big game, ultralight, everything in the middle, including fly fishing. And lately, we have been doing a jig rigging library. And just to kind of spice things up, or just be different from the rest of the videos, there will be some videos wherein I would actually have a discussion about one particular thing. And in this video, we're talking about hooks. Okay, so not just about how I rig this, but also about the hooks. And basically, why I chose this hook over that. And why. Most importantly, why. So you need to understand. Now, a lot of people, obviously, the fastest thing is that you just look at a credible source, see exactly what they're using, and then use that. Problem there is that you don't know exactly what the reason is, and you wouldn't know the difference. If some guy who's selling his wares, or whatever, actually just randomly says that, oh, these are the hooks that I'm using and this and that, you wouldn't know the reason why if you don't know the reason why. And if he's doing something wrong, then you know especially if you ask him why that hook and he doesn't have an answer, then that's if his answer like, oh, it's a good hook, but yeah, why? And then he's not able to answer that, big question mark. And then you'd be smart enough to know that, okay, this guy, let's not follow that, right? Now, first and foremost, a reminder. There's a huge difference between fast jigging and slow jigging because of the nature of each of them. All right. So with slow jigging, remember that it is a finesse technique. It is a finesse technique. Finesse because it was actually invented with a mind that it will be used in situations where fishing is tough. So it's a finesse presentation, light line, and with light line, you need your hooks to be thin wired, your leaders to be thin, obviously. Everything is scaled down, not necessarily in size, but in diameter. Okay, so in the case of your line, in the case of your leader, down to your hook, they are thinner. All this because you want to maximize each and every single strike that you get, because remember, it was invented so that you don't stop fishing in times where fishing is difficult. So it wasn't invented to actually replace fast jigging or any other type of fishing for that matter. When you're fast jigging, you're using thicker line, possibly heavier jigs. Your motion is faster, and the strikes are abrupt, explosive, thicker line. The rods are different. They're meant to pull. And it's not a finesse technique. So your hooks are actually thicker because they can stand all that force that you're generating, you're pulling, Whereas with slow jigging, you're not pulling. Okay, you're actually pointing the rod to the fish. Now remember, the rod is also different. The pure slow jigging rods are not meant to fight the fish. They are 100% manipulation tools. That is it. Okay? And I think I explained this in the rod video that every time you actually put something in fighting, you're taking away from the manipulation. So it's a kind of like a sliding scale. You put a lot on the fighting, you take a lot from the manipulation. And yeah, I mean, you'll catch fish. It's just that when it really matters, when the fishing is really really kind of difficult, and you want that jig to move to attract the fish, uh, the fighting rods are not there. Okay, the fighting rods are not there. Um, Proven time and time again. Okay. Also, I'd like to point out that if you're fishing in a place where it's easy to catch fish, none of this matters. You know, none of this matters. What do I mean by places where it's easy? Places where conservation is actually practiced. It's as simple as that. If you have in your area, if you have conservation, fishing is easy. Period. You go to places where there's zero conservation. Fishing is difficult because it's a free for all. So law of supply and demand. If there's conservation, there's going to be a lot more fish. Easy. So in places like in those places, it's kind of hard to actually justify and say that, hey, what you're doing is not entirely what this is and all that. And this basically explains America. Whether you like it or not, they just have a lot of fish, and even if they rig the jig backwards and upside down or whatever, just because there's a lot more fish, there's a lot more catch. Simple. But take those guys, take them to some place where it's difficult, and then you'll see. Different story. But there's always a merit to actually doing everything correctly, because even when the fishing is easy, there would be times when the fishing is tougher. And that's where you see the techniques actually shine. So it's really up to you to actually, kind of wait for that time or just do things properly so that when that time comes, you're already doing something proper. Done. Okay? Now, two schools of thought when it comes to hooks and generally hook manufacturing. You'll see that this one in particular, okay, we'll actually zoom in. Okay, so you can see here that this one, and this is an excellent hook. This is a VMC 7269. I love this hook. You can see here, when you tie your line, okay, when you tie your line on this, what happens is that it's like that. Okay, so it's from here going here, and your line of pull is basically straight with the shank. Whereas, now notice that that one has an eye. Whereas with this one, you'll see, okay, that your line of pull with the assist cord there, and this points down straight to your line of pull. Now, wherever your origin of pull is, that's where your hook's going. Okay, that's it. Okay, now, with hooks that actually have a straight line, there is no conclusive research saying that configuration is better than this. However, there's been research done for the hook pointing to the hook eye and why it's better. Okay, you'll find this with actually, you go to pakula.com, you'll find that there's a lengthy discussion about this. Now, which one's better? I'll tell you what, I lean towards this. Okay, data is data, and this actually doesn't have a lot of data. So for me, I'd rather go where the data points. Okay, either way, I've caught a lot of fish in with these hooks. All right, so actually today that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We are going to be rigging this jig with this hook. Now, how do you size it? Again, very straightforward, especially for slow jigs. I put the hook in the middle of the jig, and then I look for how much it sticks out. Now, if it sticks out a bit, that's the start. That's the start of what I would say is a compatible hook. Until to about that much. Okay, so this is kind of like the maximum that I would go with this jig. For fast jigs, I take the hook, put it where it's supposed to sit, and it should actually, from the one side, it should actually stick out by a little bit out here. Okay, or stick out by that much. Okay, especially when I'm using just a single hook, and that's kind of like my formula. Okay, now for slow jigs, even for single hooks, I measure it like that. Okay, just as long as it sticks out by a little bit or by that much. Okay, this is the maximum, and if it sticks out by that much, that's kind of like the minimum. Okay, very easy, straightforward. Now, don't let the manufacturer tell you exactly where the hook should go. It's a very good example right here. Hooks are always on the flat side, okay? And this is the deep side of the jig. Okay, very simple. You see here, you just see it always goes to where it's heavy. And sometimes you're faced with a jig like this, wherein the both sides would sort of be around the same. Okay, and the easiest way is to actually just go exactly that. Okay, you can see that it actually turns to this side, which is supposed to be the top. Okay, because as you can see, and this is supposed to be the flat bit. So don't let the manufacturer tell you where it is. You check for yourself. Okay, sometimes what happens is that from jig to jig to jig size, okay, size, it could be that the smaller versions of these actually roll exactly where it's supposed to roll, like that. Okay, however, when they get to the bigger sizes, there's some inconsistencies and you get something like this. So right now we're actually going to rig this jig with this on top, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, the alternative of course is just to not use it. All right, but I have this, I like this jig, and I'm gonna use it. There's no reason for me not to. Okay, so I have actually decided on this assist cord. This is the Varivas SS. Kind of difficult to work with, but this is practically one of my favorites. And for slow jigging, not too commonly used. Okay, so we're gonna be using this. We'll cut a length here. I'll show you why I'm cutting this long. Okay, and I'm gonna be using this as the one for the front actually. And I just need like a lot of line for this for me to like do whatever I want. But at the back, here's one that's short. So let's start with the back because it's easier. Okay. Okay. All right. So you have a choice whether to actually put a core on this or not. Now remember, after a while, this becomes really, really soft. Okay? Be cognizant of that. This becomes really, really soft, and part of the reason why people hate it, because at first it's stiff, and then later on, it's not. And this is more popular as a fast jigging assist cord more than it is for slow. Okay, so just a bit of a warning. So just an overhand. I'm gonna zoom in so that you guys can see exactly how I rig it. All right, so just an overhand like so. Just like that. And that's already very, very, very secure. And what we want to do is pull on that, and then we tie it. Our thread is, as usual, fishing braid, and we're binding this right here. There we go. We're binding that so that when there's pressure applied on this knot tightens up even more. It's as simple as that. That's basically why you're binding for this one in particular, because there's a knot right here, and that knot tightens when there's pressure applied on either hook. It keeps everything from unraveling. Okay, I will super glue this whole thing later. What's important now is to just put both hooks on so that we can put the solid ring. Okay, that is it. Again, that knot is what's keeping this thing together. The binding here is basically just a way for us to help this knot tighten when the fish puts pressure on the hook. So it makes the hook even stronger. Okay, now again, okay, very easy. Okay, in, make a loop, okay, like so, tighten, and you want a short tag there, just like that. Okay, now I will pull this to tighten the knot, like so. Then I will take my flat pliers, flat nose pliers, and pull. Okay, that will make it even tighter. There we go. I'll use a puller here, so I'm using this so I can pull tight, just like that. Okay, this is a bit too long for me, so I'm gonna cut a bit of it. There we go, because I want that to be matching this. So you just put the cord like so, and you would be able to wrap a few times, tighten. There we go. Okay, the bobbin holder that I'm using, this one, has a drag mechanism. So it makes it tight. Now in Europe, there's the brand Stonfo, and then in America, there's Right Bobbin. Both of these brands actually have uh, bobbin holders that have drags. Now I am taking off the winds because this one right here is not as flat as I want. So what we do is take our pliers, okay, and then flatten that up so that your wraps are going to be cleaner, okay. There we go. You can see. There we go. That's it. Again, we will super glue that later on. I do my gluing in batches. That way I kind of use up a whole tube, at least if I'm doing, my personal stuff. I go through several dozen of this and then I just glue them up all at the same time. Okay, so now we have this guy right here. And what we need to do is to pull this so it sets. And yes, if you're curious, I make these videos. I wait for the dogs to get really active, and then I say like, okay, it's time. Airplanes are the same. I actually make these videos. I wait around the whole day, and as soon as the dogs start barking and the planes start buzzing overhead, you know. Just in case you're curious, or just in case you've actually kind of thought about it and just said like, maybe, yeah, just to confirm your suspicions. Just so everyone's, kind of uncomfortable. All right, so I will use a GP ring for this. And the GP ring is a very, very strong ring. Now, this is a number 4 or 5. Okay, as you can see, it's a pear-shaped ring, not a round-shaped ring. Okay. It's just so that when you put your split ring, it doesn't move around. It stays in place. And it's quite nice. Now, with this, what I want to do is just one loop. And then from that one loop, I'm going to bind it. Okay. So, like so, just one. That's it. Because if you double it, it doesn't really give you any value. And that's the truth, If you double this up, it doesn't really give you that much value. So I'd rather use a single and then bind it. So all I'm doing is tightening it up and make sure that it doesn't move. So from there, what I can do then is bind it, okay? So how I do it is just take my hand like so. It just makes it easier, okay? uh, using the same thread. Okay, here we go. And then wrap a few times. Okay, that ensures that this will not go anywhere. Now I tighten this. That way I know each wrap is actually quite tight. Okay. And then I proceed to add. Okay. So when I do that, and this actually kind of flies out, okay, I know that the tension isn't enough, so I tighten it even more. Now what happens is that each and every single turn I do is super tight, and see, it hardly spins, which means that that thing is super tight. Okay, that's what I want. Okay, now a few turns, take it and tighten like so, and that is it right there. Cut the line. Okay, now I know there's tag ends there. I just take a lighter, touch that, bang, done deal. And then that won't go. Now if you find yourself having these, all you have to do is, I mean, you can do it with your fingers. I'm gonna do it with my thing here. Okay, pressure. Okay, let go, and you'll see that it kind of straightens up. This one, pull. Okay, so a bit more. There we go. And that's the back assist hook. Okay, so this goes like that. Okay, sits right there. Now again, I'd like to tell you, I know that it's not supposed to sit there. It's supposed to sit here. Okay, if you've just joined us, review. You'll see the reason why. So we have one done. I like a longer piece here because the last time I did this, uh, it didn't really happen the way I wanted it to. So I want a lot more. Now, I want this to be stiff. So I'm gonna take some mono, and this is stiff mono, 50-pound test, and I want the shape to be retained. Okay, so I take out the core and replace it with the mono. Now we cut this. So there goes my length. Now take my hooks, if I can find them. Okay, my hooks are here. Right. Now I'm gonna zoom you guys in so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Okay. Alright, so uh, put it here. Okay. And you know, when I put this in a box, it's kind of hard for me to actually identify which one's which. And this is one of the identifiers. Okay, so just see, 2 instead of 1, 2. Okay, I could do 3. Let's do 3 because we have a lot of line anyway. It'll look really beautiful also. So take that. Like so. Okay. And then tighten. So at one look, I could tell because it's 3. I go like, oh, okay, so these are the front hooks. As far as strength is concerned, it's actually the same. 1, 2, or 3. It's actually the same. Not much difference there. Okay. There we go. Another thing that I'm going to do is actually just cut this. Another thing I'm going to do also is just cut this and not actually tie, not bind it. Okay? I will not bind it. So I'll take care of that later. But now I want to tighten. Just make sure that's tight as can be. All right. So we take this. Then we actually measure. We want to end up just a bit like that. Okay. So we have all that to work with. Okay. Okay, now we have those three loops. All we have to do is make sure sometimes it becomes so annoying. Okay. There's definitely easier ways to do this, which I'm just complicating my life here. All right, so okay, that is in. Yeah. Tighten that. Now what we want to do is actually pull this. Okay. And at the same time, also pull this. And we take our puller here and tighten everything. Okay. There we go. Now we pull everything like that. Okay. It will stretch. It's still going to be we're taking out, basically we're taking out all the slack on this. Okay, like so. Okay, that is it. So one way for me to identify which one is which is that even if I'm cutting this really close, let's say I'll cut this here, okay, and then cut this as well, and I have very little stubs there, which I will just burn off. Now with the with this, obviously I like this because I don't have to do anything extra. That is it. I don't have to do anything extra. No gluing, you know, no gluing, no binding, and see, it actually has a spring action because of the mono that's on there. Now, same thing. I'm gonna bind it, and then we're gonna put the ring, and then we're gonna bind it. However, this thing is going to be kind of tricky because of the mono that's in there. So one identifier for me, if I put this in the box and kind of forget about it, one identifier for me is that this is knotted. And when it's knotted like this, I know that it's going to be kind of like the front hook. So kind of easy to remember, you know. Okay, so we tighten just like that. Make sure it's tight as can be, because we don't want this to be kind of flopping around, and make sure that it's also centered. When you're doing this, you don't want one length to be longer than the other. Okay, ensure that okay. Alrighty. Then we bind it so it doesn't move. Okay, make sure that it's tight. And then once you bind it, it's pretty much set and the knot won't move. Okay. It's that hard. When I'm tying these, I'm gonna have to, well, where I'm tying bindings, I'm gonna have to loosen it up. But when you are doing your PR for this, it has to be tight. That is how tight it is. It actually cuts itself just fine, because that was the finishing knot anyway. It actually cut when it crossed over on itself. Make sure that it doesn't unravel. If it unravels, then you're gonna have to do it again. But this one's fine, okay? And then you just adjust it so it lays flat, just like that. Okay, and there's your front hook. All right, so let's see how it all ties up. And then we will take, a lot of people are actually asking me, why aren't you using a swivel? Okay, so we'll use a swivel for this one. All right, so uh, do the back hook first. I actually have a lot of those SS cords, so I wanna use them up. Okay. There we go. So that's the back hook. And then front hook. Okay. Now with these GP rings, your hooks are always going to be in that small notch. Okay, let me zoom in so you guys see. Okay, so you can see that it's always going to be on that notch. See? Big advantage. So there you go. How's that for the measurement, huh? I'm pretty sure you guys noticed that I didn't measure. I just went by feel. Because I've rigged quite a few of these. Okay, now we're putting a swivel because a lot of people have been asking like, hey, why don't you use a swivel? You know, this and this and that. But I do. You just don't see it. Okay. I have a whole video talking about those things, you know, swivel and all that. All right, there we go. So, see that? See that? See? This even wants to roll. See? Now, if by chance I make a mistake, okay, and drop this down and see that this is actually leading the way it's supposed to be, that's fine. All I have to do is just switch this over, you know, or take the swivel, flip this over to this end, and then put the thing again. But we already know that this, for some weird reason, you know, see, that is actually heavier, you know. See, it doesn't want to flip. It doesn't want to flip over. See, it doesn't want to flip over. So, so for now, this is going to be the top. All right. So yeah, just as a reminder, if you have to go through all of your jigs and check to see exactly which one's the top, don't let the manufacturer's recommendation actually lead you to just do whatever. You have to check each and every single jig, especially if you have a lot of Chinese jigs, because the inconsistencies will actually cost you a few strikes. And if you don't hook those up, guess what? It's not going to be the jig's fault. It's not going to be the hook's fault. It's your fault for not checking. All right. Now, if you haven't yet and you want to learn more, click on that subscribe button, especially if you're new to this channel. If you want your friends to learn, don't gatekeep, man. You know, don't share. Okay. share. uh, Fishing is fun while you're doing it as a group. All right, and give it a thumbs up if you learned something. All right, so that's it for now. If you have questions, drop some comments below and we'll start a discussion. And that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class is missed.